Yo, what's poppin' guys, and welcome back to yet another episode of the RPG Tutorial 2022 edition. So, sorry if you can hear this in the background. The air conditioner, my office, I'm so used to saying office, my apartment is very warm at the moment, so I'm cooling it down a little bit. So, today what I'm going to be teaching is I'm going to be teaching you how to create your very own NPCs in your game. So, the way we go about doing this is fairly simple, right? It's fairly easy. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to run a bunch of systems where basically what's going to happen is every single clone is going to be visible at all times. Or what I should say is every single clone will be loaded once the game is shown. And I'll show you how to do this. This is going to be taken right out of the RPG that I'm making on stream called Sckags Mod RPG, which you can catch on stream. I'll be streaming it today, probably when this video comes out. Actually, no, probably in the afternoon when this video comes out. So what we're going to do is we're going to start setting up the system for how we make our NPCs. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to make a new sprite. I'm going to take this main character since I want all the NPCs to kind of look the same. And we're going to call this sprite NPCs. That's not how you spell NPCs. NPCs. Okay, fantastic. Now what we're going to do is we're going to name this first NPC. So I'm going to make this NPC red so we can tell the difference between them. Boom. And we're going to call this test NPC. Okay, whatever you want to call it, just make sure you have a name for it, of the name of the sprite. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with a when green flagged clicked, we are going to hide it. When green flagged clicked, hide. Fantastic, that looks good. Then what we need is we'll need to make a when I start as a clone, but we don't actually have anything to make us a clone yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up the when I start as a clone anyways, and we'll work off of that. Now you're going to see me looking over here because I'm looking at the project that I'm looking at the Sckags Mod RPG project because I don't remember this off the top of my head. This is a new system I've never tried out before. So what we're going to do is we are going to set our X to, and now this is where we're going to need to make a list called static NPC data. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to click for this sprite only because it doesn't need to be shown anywhere else. Then what we'll do is we'll open up the list so that we can start editing it. So here are the things that we're going to need to put in here. We are going to need to put their X position, their Y position, what backdrop they're visible on, and then their name. So we need 4 slots, and we're going to run that every single time. So what we'll do is we'll make 3 empty slots right here in this NPC data. So let me just make this bigger. We'll make 3 empty slots, and then this 4th slot is where you'll start inputting data. So this 4th slot is where you'll put the X, and I'll explain that in a second when we get into it. So trust me, I will explain that. So take your NPC, say you want him to go right here. Also, for making NPCs, I'd always recommend showing the backdrop number, right? Just because it's helpful. It's helpful to see. So then we can do is on 4, we can put the X position, which is -92. The Y position is 88. The backdrop number is 4. And the name was test NPC. And there we go. There we have our data for our first NPC. He's right here. Everything he needs to know is right here. And again, I'll explain what these 3 empty slots are when it becomes, a point where we're coding that. So just have that there so you can keep that in mind. And then what we'll do is we will set, not go to X, oh my goodness, a set X. We will set X to item. Grab item from your list category, and you're going to instantly set this to static NPC data. We're also going to create a new clone, and we are calling, or not clone, a new variable, and we're going to call this the clone ID for this sprite only. We'll set up what that does in a moment, but we're going to do times 4. So clone ID times 4 of static NPC data. And what that is going to do is that's when this comes into play. So the reason why there's 3 empty slots here is because there are 4 things that we need to understand, right? X, Y, backdrop, and name. 4 things. So we have these 3 empty slots for nothing, and then the 4th slot starts the X, because there's 4 things we need to know, so the 4th slot starts the X. So what it does is it takes your clone ID times 4. So let's say your clone is 1. So let's set the clone ID to 1. Okay, so that when we click this, 1. 1 times 4 is 4, and the item 4 of static NPC data is -92, which is where the X is. That's what that is. Sorry if that didn't make sense. I tried to explain it to the best of my abilities. And then what we'll do is we're going to duplicate this, set X to a set Y. And the only thing we're going to do is we're going to grab an operator. We're going to put this in here, and we're going to do a +1. So again, let's say our clone ID is 1. 1 times 4 gives us the X. If you add 1, it'll go to the 5th slot, which is 88, which is the character's Y. So there we go. Now we can have a character going to the X and the Y. Now we need something to change what backdrop it's on. But first, we're going to switch the costume. So we will switch the costume to, we're going to just duplicate this item thing, and we're going to do +3 here. Because what this does is say, again, your clone ID is 1. 1 times 4 is 4, which gives you this slot, the X slot, and then +3, 1, 2, 3, it gives you the name of the NPC. And then it'll switch that costume to the name, which, if you set your costume right, will be this costume. That's what that's doing. Okay, and don't worry, we'll set up the backdrop thing next. But right now what we're going to do is we're going to put a forever loop down here, and then we're going to make 2 blocks. We are going to make a block that says can show, and run it with out screen refresh. And then we're going to do a detect interaction. And this one is not going to run without screen refresh. So you have 2 blocks now. And you're going to put them both in this forever loop, just like that. So let's do can show first. So, because this will show us when we're allowed, this will sense the 6th slot. So, what we'll do is we will grab an if-else statement from the control panel. And we will grab an equal sign. And then we will say showing, which we need to make a variable called showing so that we can actually figure this one out. So showing question mark for the sprite only. So if showing equals yes, then we will set show. Oh, we need to have a new one. Show question mark. This is a totally different show. Trust me, these will make sense soon. The reason we have 2 different show variables here is because show, just show question mark, will make it show up. Showing will act as a counter. So for example, if you have an NPC that when you interact with, he'll disappear, that just makes it so that when you go off screen and come back on, he won't show up again. That's why there's 2 different showings, and those will make sense as we get into more complex things with NPCs. So just for now, just do this. Trust me, it'll make sense later if you don't understand it now, if that explanation wasn't good enough for you. So what we'll do is we'll take this. We're going to take this item clone ID, and we're going to change this 3 to a 2. So say again, the clone ID is 1. 1 times 4 is 4. Plus 2, 1, 2, gives us the backdrop number. So it'll set show to the backdrop number, and then it will set show right afterwards to go ahead and grab a plus and put that plus in there. Then what you'll do is you'll duplicate this and you put that in there. Same thing, just finding backdrop number plus a 0. So same thing, just to really make sure on that. And then what we'll do is we will set the ghost effect. Oh, excuse me. Ghost effect to go ahead and grab a multiplication from your operators tab. Put 100 in the first slot. And then you're going to grab an equal symbol over here. And you are going to put show, just normal show, not showing, just show, equals 0. And then you're going to put show, and then in the else, if it's not showing, you're going to put hide. Okay, now, that creates the system where he will show and hide. Fantastic. So let's take a look and see how that works out. Okay, so we come over here, he's not showing, excuse me, but when we head over to the 4th tab, he still doesn't show up. Okay. So, that means we obviously messed something up and we need to look at some stuff. I know why. I know why. So, when you start as a clone, right? When you start as a clone, you need to set the showing question mark to yes. That'd be why. That'd be why. He wasn't showing. Okay, cool. So, let's head over and check that out. He still isn't showing up. Okay. Let's figure out why. So, right, nothing is actually making him become a clone. Alright, I'm an idiot. We forgot to actually set out the whole clone part. That's what this detect interaction is not for. We are actually going to make a whole nother block that creates clones for us. So, all we need to do is come to my blocks. We'll make a block called create. Okay. Then you're going to put number input, and you're just going to put a hashtag for number. Put a label, clones, starting at, oh, that's not how you spell starting. Starting at, I'm going to put another one, call this point. Make a thing, say then, and a label saying then, and then another input saying reset. And you're going to check the run without screen refresh, and that gives you this big long block. So what this is going to do is we're going to set clone ID to point, okay? And then we're going to come into control and grab a repeat, put it right there, repeat number times, and don't worry, we'll figure out what all this does in a second, and I'll explain it, don't worry. We'll create a clone of myself, and then we will change clone ID by 1. And then we will, underneath that, we will set clone ID to reset. Now let's actually define what this does. So, what happens when we actually click the next button here? Generate world is what it does. Okay, so we'll run this when I receive generate world. We'll come into our blocks and we'll actually drag out this thing. Now, this is where we'll manually put in how many clones we actually have. So right now we have 1 clone. We're 1 NPC. Think of this button as how many NPCs there are in your world, which right now there's just 1. Okay, starting at 1, and then leave this last one as a blank. So then it resets, because this is your reset. Again, this is what this equals. So number is the number of clones. Create number of clones. That's what this says. Create number of clones. Create 1 clone starting at 1. So that's your point, starting at 1. So the clone ID would equal 1, meaning that's how it would know where to go, and then reset at nothing, so that it sets your reset, sets the clone ID to nothing at the end of it. And then this will repeat however many clones you have, which is just 1 for us right now. So let's give that a shot and see how that works. So go ahead, we'll start, we'll hit play, and next. Okay, we have 3 clones. Right, we have 3 clones here, and you see that it duplicated our NPC 3 times instead of just 1. Well, why did it do that? So, what we need to look at is what is generating the clones, which is this generate world. See, it's generating this 3 times. Okay? And the reason it's doing that is because this is being generated 3 times. So, what can we do about that? Well, what we can do is we can try putting a stop this script right afterwards, right? So we can go ahead, we could do this and stop the script right after to hopefully counter whatever it was doing. And that's one test that we can try. Let's go ahead, let's hit play, and you see it made 1 clone. All right, fantastic. It made 1 clone. Great. So that fixed that issue. Fantastic. Now we have to deal with why it isn't showing on the backdrop that it's supposed to be showing at. And that's pretty easy. Right here, I set this up really wrong. I don't know how I did this. I don't know why I messed this up so terribly, but I did. Okay, so what this needs to be is you need to take this out. Okay, I don't know how I messed this up. And you're going to put this show equals, and then you're going to put backdrop number in this slot. Okay, oh, not in that slot. Oh my goodness, no. In this slot, +0. So show equals backdrop number +0. I don't know how I messed that one up. I don't know what I was looking at, but all right, let's try this then. It's cool. It creates 1 clone. He's not showing. Let's go ahead and let's walk over here. And when we come to the next area, there he is. Here's our clone. But you'll see we can walk right through him, which is a bit annoying. So what we'll have to do is we'll have to set up some collisions with the NPCs, and then we'll have to set up some NPC interactions. So let's set that up. What we're going to do is we are going to make a new sprite, and we're going to call this collisions. Collisions. Okay. And then you're going to want one for every single backdrop that you have. So, well, not for these 2. These 2 aren't important. These 2 are not important. But for 1, 2, and 3, you're going to want some, you know, some, oh my goodness, some collisions. So, what we'll do is we're going to come to collisions, and we're going to name this first one 1, since there's no collisions on the first backdrop. There's no collisions on the second, and we have 3 backdrops in total. So these are the collisions for each of them. Make sure these are named to what your backdrop names are. My backdrop names are 1, 2, and 3, so my collisions are named 1, 2, and 3. But we want a collision on 2 where the NPC is located. So what we'll do is I'm going to take this collision box, since it's the size of the player and the player is the same size as the NPC, so I can use that. So now we'll come to collision on 2. We're going to show that, and then you'll see it pop up on the screen. And what we'll do is we'll just move it to the NPC and center it kind of where we want it. So I think that's good. So there it is. Now, you'll see in terms of collisions, we have no collisions on the first one, a little collision for the NPC on the second, and no collisions on the third. So let's quickly set up this collision. So in the collision tab, we will grab a when I receive green flag click, we will hide, and then we will do a when I receive generate world, right? What we can do is forever, we will show, we will set the ghost effect to 100, so you can't see it, but it's still there. We'll go to 0, 0, and then we will switch the costume to the backdrop's name. And that's why it's important to have your collision costume names the exact same as the backdrop that they correspond to names. Fantastic. So now let's take a look. And the reason we didn't add the first 2 is because it doesn't even show until you start playing the game. So let's test that out. Oh, we actually need to set up collisions in the player. I'm an idiot. So go to the player. Go to the player. The player's hitbox, I should say. Because player's hitbox is what actually interacts with stuff. So, what we need to do is we need to actually set up a way to be touching hitboxes. And that's going to be completely in this little player physics thing. So, what we'll do is in W, or the up, right? Because we can set an if statement. We'll do if touching collisions, then you will grab that. You will change your Y by -2, just the opposite of whatever you're moving by. And I'll duplicate this, and since it's -2, it'll be 2. Duplicate this, set this change Y to change X, -2, so it's a 2. Duplicate it again, since it's a 2, it will be a -2. And then boom, that actually sets up your collisions, and that's the collisions all done. So let's go ahead and see if we can't clip the hitbox. So keep in mind, the hitbox of the NPC is going to be the same size as mine, so you'll be able to like clip into the sides of them a little bit, but you won't actually be able to go all the way inside of them. So let's take a look. And look at that. The collisions work. Great. You see, we are under the player. If you want to set that up so their hitbox is a bit larger, you can definitely do that. So I'll do it just as an example. So let's say we want the hitbox to be a little bigger. So we will change its size. Okay, it's a little bit bigger now. Now you see we don't clip into it as much. I didn't do a good job of centering this one, but you get it. You get it. The thought is there. I like mine being the small size, same size as the player though, so I'm going to keep it that size. Alright, great. So there, we set up collisions. Now let's set up some interactions to interact with these NPCs. So, interacting with NPCs is a bit interesting, okay? So, you're going to need an add-on for this in Scratch add-ons. And I'll tell you what add-on this is. Let me just switch to a screen where will be able to see it. Alright, interesting news for me, and news for you if anyone was interested. Scratch add-ons does not actually have the add-on that I'm looking for. It's a Turbo Warp editor add-on, so if you're using Turbo Warp, then you can do it. If you're using Scratch, I'd recommend going to Turbo Warp, so I'm not going to show you how to do it, but basically, in Turbo Warp, there's an add-on that adds an opacity slider, so you can make, you could make that pretty much invisible, and what I'd do is I'd put this around the player, so that it was there, but it was really, really, really hard to see, so you could interact easier. But since people on Scratch can't do that, I'm going to show you another way that still works the exact same way. It's just you wouldn't have a big area to interact with. You only have this little area. So if you hadn't already, make sure your collision is not as big as your NPC, so that you can, get inside of the NPC like this, so you can actually get in there. Because if you're not able to, get in to interact, to not have your player touch the NPC, then this won't work. Your hitbox needs to be able to touch the NPC, what you can see, for this to work. Unless you have Scratch add-ons and you can make a opaque thing. But other than that, most likely you're probably using Scratch. So just make sure that your hitbox can actually touch the NPC. You see how my hitbox is touching the NPC. Just make sure that you can do that. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll come to our NPCs and we'll actually start using this detect interaction block. Isn't that crazy how we're going to actually detect the interactions? Okay, so you're going to come here and you can do detect interactions. What you're going to do is you're going to start instantly with an if statement that checks if your show, just your normal show, not showing, show, is 0. If it is, you're going to stop the script. This prevents you from being able to interact with an NPC if you're not on the screen, is it? Because technically they're all going to be loaded at once, but you don't want to be able to interact with them if they're not showing. Then what we're going to do is we are going to grab an if statement, put it right here, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab a not, okay, and we are going to make a variable that we are going to be calling in text for all sprites. We're going to do if not equals, go ahead and grab your in text, if not in text equals yes. Right? Then what we'll do is we'll grab yet another if statement and we'll put that inside. We'll say if. This is going to detect if we're touching it. So we're going to grab an and put the and in there. And we're going to do if touching player hitbox, not player, player's hitbox, touching the player hitbox, and key, whatever you want your interaction key. I'm going to do space since it's easy to click. You know, type that and then you interact with something. But whatever your interaction key is what this is going to be. So if touching the player hitbox and you interact, you are going to wait until, I'm going to grab this not your interaction key is pressed. So it's going to wait for you to push down the button and then let go of the button to actually start doing something. So it registers a full press. Because if you don't have that, if you hold down the button, it's going to register a whole bunch of them at once and it'll lead to a whole bunch of problems. So what we can do is we can then grab an if else statement and put it under here. And then what we can do is grab an equals and do costume name equals whatever the name of it is. So this one is test NPC. We'll have him say, we'll have him say hello. And then we can wait until key space is pressed, and then wait until not key space is pressed. So again, a full click, and then I'll say something else. I'm a test NPC. And then after that, when you click it again, you want to make sure he says nothing, just like that. And then what you can do is, first of all, when you get into this, when you get into an interaction, it's a good thing to set your in text right here. Set your in text to yes, set your in text to yes. Because what this is going to do is we're going to make this so you can't move while talking to someone. So you have to finish their dialogue before you can start talking. And then afterwards, you can set their in text to no. Something else you'd want to do right off the bat is on this green flag, you can go ahead and set in text to no when the green flag is clicked to. So make sure you do that. And there you go. There you have your text. Now we have to do something that in text actually does. So in this movement, all right, we're going to do if right here, right? Just so it has the movement inside of it. If, put no at the end, and put in text at the front. So if in text equals no, then you can do that. Else it'll do nothing. Okay, cool. So let's take a look and see how that works. So we're going to move all the way over here. Here's our NPC. Let's go up and talk to him. See, if we're here, doesn't do anything. Here, doesn't do anything. But if our hitbox touches him, hello, and let's try to move. We can't move. I'm a test NPC. And then we're free to move again. So there we go. There's a super basic NPC with interactions and collisions. So I'm gonna leave the episode here. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, then like it. If you didn't like it anyways, because we're getting somewhere. While you're at it, want to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy my content. That helped me a lot. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.